04:47 hours. Barents Sea, 230 nautical miles north of the Arctic Circle. The ice didn't crack. It screamed. The US Arleigh Burke, a $1.8 billion guided missile destroyer, never designed for ice operations, was grinding through frozen hell at 8 knots when the Russian warships appeared on radar. Not one ship. 3. 2 Udaloy-class destroyers and a Slava-class cruiser, all bearing down on the lone American vessel like wolves surrounding wounded prey. Russia's message was clear: turn around, leave our waters, or face consequences. The Arleigh Burke's captain had 30 seconds to make a decision that could start a war or end his career. Alter course and broadcast American weakness across Russian state television. Hold course and risk collision with ships designed to smash through Arctic ice, while his destroyer's hull was built for open ocean. He chose option 3, the option Moscow never saw coming. And what happened in the next 11 minutes didn't just go wrong for Russia. It went catastrophically, internationally, irreversibly wrong, in ways that would force their Northern Fleet commander to explain to the Kremlin how 3 warships lost a confrontation to 1 without a single shot being fired. Because the Arleigh Burke wasn't alone. Russia just couldn't see what was hunting them. Rewind 96 hours. Deep inside a classified intelligence facility outside Washington, satellite analysts flagged unusual activity at Severomorsk Naval Base. Russian surface, combatants fueling, crews loading provisions. Communications chatter suggesting imminent deployment. The pattern was familiar. Whenever U.S. ships entered Arctic waters for freedom of navigation operations, Russia sent intimidation forces to escort them out. The Pentagon's response was calculated. Send the destroyer. Let Russia commit their ships. And when they do, spring the trap they'll never see until it's too late. Because the Arleigh Burke wasn't conducting a patrol. It was bait, and Russia was about to bite down on a hook that would drag their tactical reputation into international humiliation. 04:52 hours. The Russian formation closed to 40 nautical miles. Their radars went active, loud, aggressive, impossible to miss. They wanted the American destroyer to know they were coming. Wanted the crew to feel surrounded. Wanted the captain to blink first. Russian radio transmissions started immediately. First in Russian, then in broken English. United States warship, you are operating in proximity to Russian naval exercises. Alter course immediately, or accept responsibility for unsafe navigation. The Arleigh Burke's response was ice cold. Russian vessels, this is United States Navy warship in international waters. We are maintaining course and speed. Recommend you comply with collision avoidance regulations. Translation, we're not moving. And if you want to play chicken with a U.S. destroyer, the world will be watching who flinches. Russia didn't flinch. They accelerated. The lead Udaloy destroyer surged ahead at 22 knots, angling to cut directly across the American ship's bow. Classic intimidation. Force the target into evasive maneuvers that look like retreat. The Russian captain had done this before. Cold War-style harassment that worked when the other side valued caution over confrontation. But this wasn't the Cold War, and that Russian captain was about to learn the difference. 05:04 hours. That's when the first piece of the trap revealed itself. A U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft transmitted a routine position update on open frequency. Nothing threatening, standard procedure. Except the timing wasn't coincidental. The P-8A was orbiting 25,000 feet directly above the Russian formation, sensors locked, tracking every Russian ship with precision they didn't know existed. Russian electronic warfare officers detected the aircraft. So what? Patrol planes fly over international waters constantly. What those officers didn't realize was that the P-8A wasn't just watching, it was coordinating. And if there's an aircraft coordinating from above, that means something else is positioned below. 05:09 hours. The Russian lead destroyer made its move. Hard turn to starboard, cutting directly into the Arleigh Burke's path at full speed. Aggressive, professional, perfectly executed. The maneuver would force the American ship to either stop, turn away, or risk collision. The Russian captain was playing a game he'd mastered. What he didn't know was that he'd just steered his ship directly over a Virginia-class attack submarine that had been tracking him for the last 40 minutes. And if that Russian captain had known what was beneath him, 600 feet down, silent, invisible, with torpedo tubes loaded and fire control solutions already calculated, he wouldn't have accelerated. He would have stopped breathing. Because the submarine wasn't there to observe. It was there to remind Russia that surface confrontations in the 21st century happen in 3 dimensions, and the dimension Russia forgot about was directly below their keels. Uro 5, 11 hours. The Arleigh Burke's sonar detected the submarine's presence through a brief acoustic signature, a sound so faint it would have been missed by any ship not specifically listening for it. But the destroyer was listening. And more importantly, the destroyer's captain knew the submarine was there. It had been coordinating positions through encrypted channels for hours. The Russian formation had no idea they were operating directly above a platform that could sink all 3 ships in under 4 minutes if ordered. The American captain keyed his encrypted radio. Snapshot. Confirm acoustic contact, bearing 320, range 8,000 yards. The response came back instantly. Confirmed. Holding position. Weapons tight, unless otherwise directed. The submarine wasn't going to fire, but its presence changed everything. Because Russia was no longer surrounding one ship. Russia was floating above a threat they couldn't detect, couldn't counter, and wouldn't know existed until it was already too late. 05:14 hours. The Russian formation spread into envelopment geometry. Lead destroyer ahead. Cruiser center. Second destroyer flanking. Perfect tactical positioning. Except they were positioning themselves inside a kill box they didn't know existed. The P-8A tracked them from above. The submarine tracked them from below. And the Arleigh Burke tracked them from the center, feeding data to both, coordinating movements, waiting for Russia to make the mistake that would break their formation. They didn't have to wait long. 05:17 hours. The lead Russian destroyer pushed too hard, trying to intimidate, trying to cut off the American ship's escape route, trying to force capitulation through aggressive seamanship. The destroyer's captain ordered flank speed and cut inside the densest ice concentration, aiming to position his ship directly across the Arleigh Burke's bow. That's when physics reminded everyone that confidence doesn't override reality. The Russian destroyer's reinforced bow, designed to break through ice, slammed into a submerged pressure ridge at 22 knots. Not surface ice, a massive underwater shelf of frozen seawater extending 15 feet below the waterline like a hidden concrete wall. The impact wasn't a gentle scrape, it was a collision. Metal shrieked. The bow sonar dome, critical for submarine detection, crumpled like aluminum foil. The forward hull plates buckled, and most critically, the impact generated a transient acoustic signature so loud that the Virginia-class submarine 8,000 yards away recorded it clearly enough to classify the exact damage location. Inside the Russian destroyer's bridge, chaos erupted. Damage control alarms, flooding reports, propulsion cavitation as the captain ordered emergency reverse thrust. The ship that was supposed to intimidate the Americans had just crippled itself trying to execute a maneuver that worked in open water but failed catastrophically in ice-dense Arctic conditions. The Arleigh Burke sonar operator heard it. The P-8A's acoustic sensors recorded it. And the submarine's passive sonar logged every second of Russia's self-inflicted disaster. The American captain didn't change course, didn't slow down, didn't even acknowledge the Russian ship's collision. He just kept sailing as if 7,000 tons of damaged Russian warship wasn't limping away to starboard. 05:19 hours. But Russia wasn't done making mistakes. The Slava-class cruiser, trying to compensate for the lead destroyer's failure, activated its fire control radar, not to target the Arleigh Burke, just to improve tracking in degraded visibility. It was a technical decision made by an operator trying to do his job, but fire control radar activation has consequences. The moment that radar went active, the Arleigh Burke's threat warning systems classified it as hostile targeting. The destroyer's electronic warfare suite responded automatically, not with aggressive jamming, but with surgical interference calibrated to destabilize tracking without triggering escalation. Within seconds, the Russian cruiser's radar began showing phantom contacts. Tracking quality degraded. Target solutions became unreliable. Russian operators tried compensating, changed frequencies, increased power, adjusted pulse repetition rates, But the American electronic warfare system adapted faster than Russian operators could react. Every adjustment was countered. Every compensation was degraded. The cruiser's radar, expensive, sophisticated, theoretically capable, had been reduced to expensive noise by a destroyer they thought they were intimidating. 05:23 hours. Then the moment happened that would never appear in Russian state media, but would circulate through NATO intelligence briefings for months. The second Russian destroyer, trying to maintain formation integrity after the lead ship's collision, altered course to close on the Arleigh Burke from the port side. Aggressive positioning, calculated risk, perfectly legal in international waters. Except the destroyer's sonar operator suddenly detected something that made his blood freeze. A transient contact. Subsurface. Close. Very close. The acoustic signature matched no known marine life. It matched a submarine, a U.S. submarine, and it was positioned directly beneath the Russian formation. The Russian sonar operator's voice cracked over the internal communications, submarine contact. Bearing 180, range, Jesus, range 4,000 meters. It's directly below us. Panic doesn't happen on warships. Training prevents it. Discipline contains it. But fear? Fear is harder to hide. And every Russian sailor who heard that report understood what it meant. They'd been operating for 15 minutes directly above an American attack submarine. A platform that could have fired torpedoes at any moment and sunk all three ships before they knew they were under attack. The submarine hadn't fired, but it had been there, watching, tracking, waiting. The Russian formation's aggressive maneuvering stopped instantly, not gradually, instantly. The lead destroyer, damaged and struggling, turned east toward Severomorsk. The cruiser ceased fire control radar operations and increased separation. The second destroyer accelerated out of the area like it was being chased, which, in a sense, it was. Because knowing a submarine is below you and not knowing what it's going to do next is more terrifying than any missile launch. 05:28 hours. The confrontation was over. 3 Russian warships had attempted to intimidate 1 American destroyer. Result: 1 Russian ship damaged by its own aggressive maneuvering. 1 Russian cruiser electronically blinded by countermeasures it couldn't overcome. 1 Russian destroyer fleeing after detecting a submarine that had been tracking them the entire time. And 1 American destroyer that never altered course, never increased speed, never showed any indication that Russia's intimidation had any effect whatsoever. The Arleigh Burke continued its patrol. The P-8A remained overhead, documenting everything. And the Virginia-class submarine slipped back into the deep, its presence never officially acknowledged, but tactically decisive. Russia came to demonstrate Arctic dominance. Instead, they demonstrated how quickly tactical confidence collapses when you realize the hunter is actually the hunted. 06:15 hours. Russian state television would later report successful naval exercises in the Barents Sea. No mention of the destroyer collision. No mention of the damaged sonar. No mention of the submarine detection that proved Russia's surface ships were operating blind above threats they never saw coming. Moscow's propaganda required editing reality. But inside Russia's Northern Fleet Command, the truth was inescapable. They'd sent 3 ships to force 1 American destroyer out of Arctic waters. Instead, one of their ships limped home damaged. Their cruiser's radar was humiliated by American electronic warfare, and they discovered, too late, that they'd been operating above a U.S. submarine the entire time. The ice went wrong. The radar went wrong. The tactics went wrong. But the worst part? The part that would haunt Russian naval planning for years? They never knew they were surrounded until the trap had already closed. And by then, the only option left was retreat. So here's the real question. When Russia sends ships to intimidate American vessels in contested waters, are they testing U.S. resolve, or are they walking into traps they're too confident to see until it's too late? And does one damaged destroyer teach them caution, or does it just teach them to be quieter next time they try the same tactics? Drop your analysis, because in the Arctic, going wrong doesn't mean loud explosions. It means quiet humiliation that never makes the news, but changes everything behind closed doors.